Hi guys, Mike here. So this is just going to be a video just to show you how to set up some graphics to cut and print, and these are going to be a shark teeth mouth for a kayak, for the side of the kayak. So I've located a few images, as you can see here, on Google. So firstly, I just want to apologize for the way I'm recording the video. It's with my phone, and it's just not great quality, and I'm not set up digitally properly yet with microphones and stuff like that to record the screen. So for the moment, I'm just going to do it this way. Okay, so I did a Google search for the shark teeth mouth, and I looked for a large image. So I found this one here. And I like the three dimensions of it because the teeth are actually, have a bit of shading on them. So I like that. So I literally right click on that, copy the image. Then in Adobe Illustrator, I'm just going to paste that in, Control and V. So if you look at the image that I have, right, you'll see that there are actually, white is a color, so that's one color. Black is 2. There's a shading here which is not white, so that's 3. 4 is the red. So white, cream, that's 2. Black is 3. Red is 4. Okay, so we've got 4 colors there. So when I go to do an image trace of this, because I want to turn this into a vector artwork, just so the lines are nice and crisp. So image trace that. Automatically the tracing result is going to be black and white. But if you click tracing result on the top left hand corner, you can come down to, preset. If you go to default up here on the top left hand side, go down to 6 colors. So it's literally going to trace 6 different colors for us. As we just figured out, we only really need 4. Then at the top here on the right, you just click expand, and as you can see now, you can see all your trace lines. I zoom in, you can see all the lines there. That it's vectorized artwork now, it's no longer pixelized. So that's the preview of it. So I want to go into edit mode now and delete all the colors I don't want. So that creamy color that came in, I want to get rid of all of that, substitute that with white. All I want is white, black, red and grey. So I double click that to go into edit mode. It's now the cream color that it has selected, so I want to get all of those cream colors away. So I go up to the top of my bar here, click select, go down to same, and then click fill color. So it selects all the same fill color as that. Okay, so there's not a lot of cream as it turns out. I hit delete all of that. Go into edit mode again. I can see an unusual grey color here. Again, select same fill color. Yeah, there's a lot of that grey there. I'm kind of thinking it actually might look okay in there, so I'm going to leave that in the eyes and on the teeth. Let me see. The teeth be better white. Teeth be better white. Yeah, I'm just going to delete that, guys. So it's just white. So it's just nice and clear. Actually, no. I'm going to leave the grey there. Okay, right. So I'll leave the grey in the teeth and in the eyes. All right. So we've got black, red, 2 shades of grey, and then of course white. Okay, so literally, obviously that's the left and the right, so I only need to do work on one side. Okay, so the bottom one seems to be the best. The top, it substituted a few little jaggedy lines there for grey. So I'm gonna get the top one and delete that off. Okay, and just work with the bottom, and then when I have cut lines created on this, I'm literally just going to mirror this then, so that's the left and right side. So here's my vectorized artwork now. I'm going to save that. I save it on my E drive, so I have a folder in there for my own stuff, so I'll just call that our stuff. And this is for a kayak, so I'm going to put it into kayak. You can just call it kayak. Shark teeth. Shark teeth. Okay, so save that there. Now, so what I want to do is actually figure out how it's going to look on the kayak, because I don't like just guessing a size. Somebody say to me, right, Mike, I want some text and I want it 6 inches tall to go on the side of my vehicle or my boat. and I'm like, well, you know, is 6 inch going to look right? It's going to look too big or too small. I'd rather have a photograph and a measurement of the boat and superimpose that on the boat. So in this case we have a kayak. I'm going to create another layer. This is an art layer, so over on the right hand side of my palette I just call a layer artwork. Then I'm going to create a new layer. I'm just going to call this kayaks, because I have one for myself and one for my daughter. So I drop that layer at the bottom, so kayak layer is below. So now I go file, place. I'm going to place the image of the kayak. I just took a photograph of both of them a few minutes ago. So there we go. And I know I measured the kayak from the top to the bottom. Here is 13 inches on my one. So I literally draw a rectangular box, okay, from the top to the bottom. And I just make sure that the height of that, my document setup here, I need to go document setup, change this from millimeters to inches, because I just didn't check the millimeter valuation for 13 inches. So I'm just going to make this 13 inches. So I grab the box and the photograph and bring them down to scale, unselecting the photograph each time until the box is 13 inches. So that's pretty much 13 inches there, right? Delete the box. I know that I've got 100% scale photograph of my kayak now. So I'm going to drop that in the background there. So that's my kayak done and visually how it's going to look. So I'm happy with that. On the kayak layer again, I select that again, and then I go file, place, and I bring in the photograph of my daughter's kayak. Now her kayak is from top to bottom 11 inches. So I'm going to have to make this graphic a little bit smaller in reality when I'm printing and cutting it, just so the proportion of it looks right on hers and it's not too big and not spilling over the edges. So create a rectangle again. So from the top to the bottom here was 11 inches I worked out. So grab the two of them, scale them down in proportion, unselecting the photograph each time, leaving the selection on the rectangular box, and continuing to scale it down till it's 11 inches. So that's 11 inches exactly now. I delete that. Here we've got her kayak now. I'm going to scale it up a tiny little bit more so that the image is a little bit bigger on hers. So object transform reflect, and reflect vertical, so from left to right. And this is how hers is going to look. Okay, which is really cool, but like I said, I'm going to have to scale that down a small bit. So I bring that down, probably go object transform scale. I'm going to bring that down like to 90% of my image. So now I know that when I have my cut line on my own, I just need to reduce it by 90 to 90% scale, and it should fit perfectly in there on her one. So that is how they are going to look on the kayak. Yeah, it's going to look pretty cool. So what I need to do in Adobe Illustrator now is actually create a cut line. Adobe Illustrator creating cut lines is a little bit difficult. It's just a little bit long-winded. I use SignLab as well apart from this program. I use this program though for, like I just created, outlining artwork, like vectorized stuff. It's really cool for that. Adobe Illustrator is great for that. But it's a little bit of a long-winded way of doing things to create a cut line in Adobe Illustrator, but I'm going to show you how to do it now anyway, okay? So I've got my two layers over here on the right. If you look top right hand corner, artwork, and then kayak. So I'm going to create a new layer, which I like to have a separate layer called cut lines. I just like to have that whole complete layer of cut lines as a separate layer. So what I'm going to do is, sometimes a color that looks like black may not give you the value of black. So when I go to the direct select tool over here on the top left hand side, the arrow, when I select the black color here, it's not in fact black, because if you look over here on the right, you'll see the value for that is cyan 72, magenta 68, yellow 66, black is 87. So it's not a true black, it's going to be a dirty kind of a browny black. So I like to select that. So again, direct selection tool, I selected this color, and I go select same fill color again. It selects all of that color in this whole file. So selected all of that black, so I don't have to individually go around and select all of those pieces. So now I'm going to bring all the cyan down, yellow down, and magenta down, and bring the black right up to 100%, okay? my color mode is set to RGB, so I can see there's an issue here with this color, so I need to set that to CMYK and bring that value back up to black 100%. Okay, so my palette now is CMYK, and this is a true black, 100% black. So this will be a really nice solid color. So okay, so let's get a cut line on this, right? So on the artwork here, I'm going to work on this one. So I'm going to duplicate this, move that up here. Okay, when you do a cut line, you're going to have bleed to allow for when you print and then laminate your graphic, and then you go to cut inside that graphic, you want to make sure you don't leave white around the edge. So you always do a border of black or whatever the outermost color is, so that when it cuts into that, if it moves off a tiny little bit, you won't have a flash of white. Press Control C, so I copy everything. Control V, Control F. I'm on a PC, guys, not a Mac, so Control F and it drops it right on top. So I have a duplicate on top. Object Arrange, send it to the back. Okay, I'm going to send it to the back. Over here you've got your fill color. I'm going to set my fill color to what's at the back. There is a duplicate of this, 100% black, and I want to put a border on this of black, 100% black as well. So I need to go down here on my palette on the right hand side, and I've got my stroke. So I'm going to set a stroke on this to go, you can see it coming out there now, all the way around, so that when my cut line cuts inside that, it will be black all the way around the edge, which will be really cool. So set my stroke to like 50 point, okay, with a rounded edge on it. Okay, it's great. Control C again, so I'm going to Control copy that. So this whole image here now has a lovely big fat black outline. Now I need to create my cut line. So I'm going to put that into my cut line layer, lock artwork, lock kayak, photograph, and then going to cut lines. Control and F. Okay, so now I'm after pasting on top all of the artwork I have with the border lines on them as well. So I want to land in the middle here with my cut line between the green and the outside of the black, so it lands right in the middle of the black cut line. Okay, so I need to bring that down then to 25, let's just say. Okay, press enter. I'm going to click off the visibility of the artwork so I can see how fat this actually is. Okay. Okay, so you can see on my palette over here. So on cut lines again, this is what I have. Now guys, I want to weld all these lines together, okay, because there's so much nonsense in there. What I always do, because I've got a stroke on this, that is not a solid line until you convert it in Adobe Illustrator. You need to go to Object, Expand. It expands here your fill and your stroke. Okay, to that. Now it's expanded a stroke. I had a stroke on everything. Over here on my Pathfinder tool, on my palette over here, I just weld all of those together. So merge. Okay, so after merging everything together now, so I have one layer. Now I need to turn this into a cut line. So how I do that is I have to create a new swatch. This is your CMYK palette over here. So I need to create a new swatch. So I click this page here. It needs to be spot color. So I click process color, go down to spot color, and then the so spot color, and then over here in the color band, I want to create that like a really bright magenta, so it stands out and it's different to all the other colors. So 100% magenta, spot color, and then the swatch name needs to be cut contour. This is the difficulty with Adobe Illustrator, guys. It's very long-winded way of doing it. Maybe they have a new way of doing it now, but when I learned, this is how I learned. So cut contour, capital C-U-T, capital C-O-N-T-O-U-R. So capital C in both cases, and no spaces, cut contour. Okay, that. And now this is your stroke, okay? Over here I'm going to change the fill just to a stroke of a cut line so I can see everything that's going on. And now when I click my artwork back on, that was below. Now you can see my cut line is here in the middle of the black. So if it runs off when I print, laminate and go to cut, it's always going to show black. So if it shifts a little bit more up there, it's going to be perfect. Cut line is all in one layer. Okay. Now, so that's perfect. The second part of the process then is to laminate these prints. So the prints were done in a HITAC film, and that is because the kayaks are very low energy, so it's a really HITAC vinyl, and then the lamination on top of it as well is a really hard wearing lamination, and it has a kind of a stippled finish on it. So I'm going to laminate it with the laminate, put it back in the machine, and then contour cut it. So it's a perfectly cut graphic. So laminating this, guys, is literally just putting a protective coating on the top, which will stop the ink from being worn away or being, you know, worn by anything abrasive, or literally just by the weather itself. And in this case, of course, we've got salty water to think about if the kayak is going to be in the sea, and also fresh water, so it'll protect us from all of that as well. So guys, I've just loaded the print up into the printer, and I'm going to do the contour cut now, but there's just a few things I just want to show you here, which is really handy, and I use this every single time I put a piece of material in here that needs to be cut. So of course the depth of your blade needs to be correct. If it goes too deep and it cuts into the backing paper, when you try to weed away your graphic, you'll have all sorts of issues. So you need to get the depth right so that it goes through your graphic and not through the backing paper. So go into function, go down to cut configuration, go over. We're going to want to do a test cut, right? We want to see what the depth is first. So I'm going to bring my force right down to its lowest point, and the reason for that is I don't want it to cut through the paper, because it starts its first test cut on the crop mark, the registration mark for the print, and I need to make sure that it doesn't cut through that crop mark there. So I perform the first, I enter that, go back up to test cut, performing test cut. So of course I know 35 grams of pressure is not going to be enough to cut through this vinyl, because it's very heavy HITAC, and of course with the lamination on top as well, it's going to be very heavy. So there you go, a really light cut, but it just cuts through the registration mark, and I don't want it to cut through there because I need that registration mark. So I do another test cut, and then it jumps past the registration mark. So now I'm in business. So every test cut I do from now on is going to be a proper one. So my force, bring it up to 190 grams of force. Okay. Test cut. So now there's a test cut, a square and a circle, and then you just weed one from the other. So my test cut is right here. You may not be able to see it. It's right beside that registration mark, right where my blade is. So I weed the circle away. So the edges of the square lifted a small bit when I was weeding away the circle, so I might just put another 5 grams of pressure on there. So down, across, up, 195, and I'm pretty sure that that's going to work. All the way back, tells you the width of the roll. And now I go back to VersaWorks, and I go in here to my file, my shark teeth file. I double click on there, and I set that to go from print only to cut only. That was what it was like printing. Now we're going to cut, so all our cut lines are coming out there, and then press OK and hit the print button. Okay, and then over here the printer will line up. It We'll find the registration marks. There's 2 on the front and 2 on the rear. So it's going to find those now. Hi guys, so this is the kayak here, and I'm going to put the graphics on now. Roughly position it on the kayak. Okay, it's going to sweep around the front a small bit. I don't want it too low because the water line will be there. So I want to keep it up. Are you happy with that, Aisling? Aisling's the camera lady. You happy?
Yeah.
Good. Alrighty. So, okay, so that's my positioning. I'm happy enough with that. So a little bit of heat, just to let the material relax around the edges a little bit. Gets rid of those wrinkles, as you can see. Always aim for the wrinkle and work out. Okay, so that's swinging around a nice little bit there. I'm happy with that. Okay, so if I had a piece of knifeless tape lined up there already, I wouldn't have to do what I'm about to do now. But not everybody's going to have knifeless tape out there, so I'm going to just mark over from center so I have a little bit of an overlap. Now, so peel the excess away. Okay, and then we repeat exactly the same on the other side. Give it a little bit of a post heat. Just make sure all the edges are stuck really well. Gets rid of any air bubbles. Okay, so we've got air bubbles there. I've got a little punch that just takes that air out of there. Put a little hole in it, touch it with a bit of heat, and that literally disappears. Little air bubble gone. Alrighty. Okay. So guys, what I'm going to do on the other side, because if I put the next piece on and it swings around here and I cut it, when I cut through the top layer, it might cut through the bottom layer, and then that might shrink and open. So if I put some knifeless tape on there, I'll be sure that that's not going to happen. So I'm just going to put on a little bit. So guys, we're just on the other side now, so we're just going to lightly tack that up and try and get the positioning as close to the other side as possible. And then in the middle at the front, it should line up really well. So the eye literally just comes across that lip just a tiny bit. So, and then we come around the front, and I'm just going to make sure that we're lining up properly there. Okay, bodyguard knife again through here. Center hinge method is the most simple way of applying graphics. Divide your graphic into two pieces. It just makes it more manageable. Alrighty, so now I'm going to probably have to manipulate the front piece a little bit to make sure it lines up with the other side. So that's what I'm going to do now, is lightly rub it on until it comes up the front and just see how we're lying. Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, I don't need to readjust that at all. So now I just rub this piece on. Okay, so a little bit of heat on the front, guys, because I'm going to be bending this around the corner. Like this. Get rid of your air bubbles. Now I'm going to break the knifeless tape here in the middle. So you bend the knifeless tape over on itself 180 degrees. You pinch it with your index finger or your thumb, and then a short snappy tug like this, and then it breaks through the filament, and then you just continue through your material like that. So your knifeless tape cuts through without cutting your graphic underneath, and then peel it away. And that's how to finish the front area. I'm just going to trim the top here and put a slightly rounded corner on it. A rounded corner will wear better than a pointed corner. So that looks pretty good. That looks pretty cool. Cheers, guys.